There he is. I'm gonna guess that that means Tom's back. Anyway, we went to Montana, and my 10-year-old son was climbing this mountain, and my 8-year-old son was right behind him, and my wife was climbing this. And I realized for the first time in my life, I couldn't join them. I was at a point where I physically couldn't climb with them and move with them, and all of the lies that I'd been telling myself up to this point, that it was fine, that I was just, just sort of enjoying life as it came, and it was much easier to choose these other types of food in this lifestyle. I broke down, guys. I had one of those moments, one of those defining moments, that is that I was just in this, sitting at the base of this mountain, and sort of made a promise to myself, and that I wasn't going to miss out on any more climbs. I wasn't going to miss out on any more adventures. I wanted to climb all of the mountains. I wanted to hold my grandkids one day, and I wanted to travel with my wife, and where I was headed, I was not going to get to that point. And so I came back, and I talked to Tom, and started pursuing not pursuing a different quality of life. And I don't know if you all can understand this. You probably can. Has anybody experienced the like extreme paradigm shift, where you start to notice things that you never noticed before? You start to notice the labels on food. Do you know your food comes with labels? I spent like 30 plus years of my life not paying attention to that, and not paying attention to what I ordered at a restaurant. And I wasn't aware of how it was affecting the people around me. I took my wife out to dinner a few days ago, and we walked into a restaurant, and I asked the person at the restaurant for the nutrition menu, for the menu that kind of breaks everything down. And my wife, who I've been married to for 13 years, started crying. And I said, "Are you okay?" She's like, "That's the first time we've ever walked into a restaurant together, and you cared at all to ask what was in the food you're eating. And it's an outward sign to me that you want to be here with me, that you want to be here for the kids, and you want to live with us." And so that's where my journey is. I'm not as far along as some of you, but I am seeing, and every day, examples of what it's like to make that promise to myself. And I'm over a month in. I'm down. I think I just hit week 5 or 6. I'm not sure, but I'm down 30. Week 6, and I'm down 36 pounds of just sticking to the program. I'm wearing shirts I never got to wear before. I'm wearing clothes, and my 10-year-old son came up to me, and he said, "Dad, I can't wait to go back to Montana with you." And he said that to me a couple days ago, and I'm just really happy to be here, guys. Really happy to learn from each and every one of you, and to share this journey with you. It's rare to find a group of guys that know exactly where we all come from and experience those moments. So it was a really cool moment.
That's so awesome, Billy. Thank you for sharing. And I know a lot of us are coaches, and that's right there is the reason we coach. I told Billy in our celebration call last week that, this is how he looks at his sons, and he feels proud that, my clients, when I hear something like that, just, sorry, I'm getting a message from Chef Jeff. He's trying to get in. He's asking if it's caps. I don't know.
He's probably asking about the password, but I sent the password to him in the Hottest Team Men group.
Yeah. I sent him a link too, and it's right there. So I don't know. I'm sorry, but I can't.
Yeah, and Alan sent him a link too.
With that. All right. Let me get back to where we were. Sorry, my everything just like blew up on my screen, and my computer went absolutely black, and then I had to log back in. So thank you, Alan, for restarting the recording. All right. So Jamil Frazier, the 12 shifts. Now, last week we talked about shift number 1, which is you have superpowers. We explored the concept that we all have a superhero inside, and that from the day we were born, and that golden interior gets covered up with clay. And he used that great analogy or metaphor of the Buddha, golden Buddha, covered up with clay by the monks over the years, and they had forgotten that it was the statue underneath. And that clay in our modern parlance are things like, family, society, expectations for ourselves. Over and over, things get put on top of us and cover up what that is that we have inside and the power we have inside. So shift 2 explores, now that we know the clay is there, what do we do with it? We want to chip it off. We want to get rid of that clay. And there's that graphic. And hopefully we all find abs like that underneath the clay, because that's what I want. So that's a huge goal. You can see the amount of work that's in that statue right there. So shift 2, the thesis of this shift is basically, when you have a goal that big, you have to take equal action. And then he talks about his 1,095,000 swings. And because I can't even, I'm going to read this just because I can't even put it into words. So when he was in 8th grade, this is what his day liked for 2 years. He would go to school and dream about baseball. He would come home, head back to his bedroom, trade the backpack for a bat, take 500 swings with his left hand, and then switch stances. Take 500 swings with the right hand and change positions. Then take 500 full swings, envisioning a home run every time. Go prone and pump out 100 push-ups, roll over and crush 300 crunches, and lastly, let a big smile light up my sweaty face. That's in 8th grade with nobody telling him that that's what you had to do to be a good baseball player. He just knew. So what do we think of that? My first reaction when I read that, I was like, okay, dude, you're not normal. That's not normal. That's certainly not me. I don't have that kind of drive, but that's how I hit it. Let me get some other reactions, guys. What do we, when we hear that of an 8-year-old boy doing it without anybody telling him to do it? Does anybody relate to that, or is that like you're from another planet?
I mean, I used to play a lot of sports when I was a little bit younger, like in high school. But I mean, some people just really love, I mean, if you found something you really loved, I guess that had to have been the reason for that. But I mean, no, I mean, it's a lot of drive. I mean, you hear about all the greats like do that, like Michael Jordan. He would be outside like doing like 500 free throws a day or whatever, something crazy like that. I mean, it's with all the greats. I mean, I hope someday he gets drafted to the Phillies, but that's in the future. But yeah, that was my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, good. No, thank you, Pat. Anybody else have any impressions about that, or that whole, just that image of the 8th grader in his room doing that has really stuck with me since I first read this. Anybody else?
That first the line you read, I have the book on my tablet, and that because when you have a goal that big, you have to take equal action.
Yeah,
you have to do it, and I wish I had that dedication in in the coaching business. Joy has more drive than I do, and I get focused on my job, and I really work hard at that. I mean, I learned everything I had to do to, when you're doing what I do, people give you objections. You have to come back with a rebuttal. And I worked hard at that, to learn that, because it's a different business, because I was in the car business doing this basic same thing, and I knew the jargon for that. But this, I worked hard at learning what I need to learn. So I have to take that same drive I have with my profession and put that same drive in that goal that big, which, I've gone to convention twice, and I've said, You know, when I went in 21, I said, someday I want to sit in those white chairs. And I had this big goal, but I didn't put any action into it. You know, and that's what I mean, just you have to take equal action.
Yeah.
You can have these goals in front of you, but if you don't do anything about it, you know, and I know it's like, man, I got to do something.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and I think what he does in a good way from here is he kind of talks about, you know, we'll get into it, but into figuring that out and how we do it, because we know we got to do it, but how do we do it? And so I think that leads into what he's got coming up nicely. Before we leave the whole 1 million swings thing, did anybody else have any thoughts on that section?
Yeah, it strikes me that I've never been a sports person my whole life. I played trombone, not football, so I get the idea of practicing. But yeah, it sounds crazy and it's not normal. But the thing that resonates in my mind is I was listening to that section again on my way home from work today was, I don't want normal, and I've got to figure out in my mind how to get to that place of, okay, I'm not normal. I want to do the abnormal thing now.
Right. Yeah, that's good, John. So regardless of how we feel about the 1 million swings, and I was a band kid growing up, John, so I know about putting hours and hours into marching band and things like that. But that was somebody telling, I was getting a grade. I was just doing that. But what's interesting about Jamil at this point in his life is that he had a disconnect. He's like, I knew I had to do that to be a good baseball player, but I didn't know I had to do that to be a good husband, father, businessman, successful coach, any of that. It wasn't until he kind of had this shift later in his, I guess, late 20s to early 30s that was like where he started to equate his baseball discipline with his work discipline, and extend it to every area of his life. So the next big thing that he talks about is this statement: it's not my fault. He says the belief that it isn't my fault puts us in the passenger seat of our own lives. It strips us of responsibility and allows us to remain passive instead of taking actions. And how many times have we said this, that it's, I got bad grades. I was actually having this conversation with my son earlier tonight. I was like, because he's 30 now, but in high school, you got bad grades, your teachers were morons. You got fired from your job because your boss was an idiot. It was always somebody else's fault. And now I have seen him start to take responsibility and say, some of this is my fault. But Jamil then makes what so far to me is the most controversial statement that he's made in the book so far. And it's okay, because when in this room, to have disparaging opinions about the material, or disagreeing opinions. He's not infallible. Maybe he got some stuff wrong. I don't know. I'm not here to say yay or nay, but I will tell you that this statement where he says, accept that everything you don't like about your life right now is your fault. That makes me very uncomfortable. And it really makes me curious about how far we're going to take that. Because we've all had bad things happen to us. Some people have had terrible things happen to them. From accidents on the highway to abuse from a family member to, assault from a stranger, whatever. Terrible things have happened to you that have had long lasting effects. And you're supposed to say that's your fault? What do we think about that?
So I'm going to jump in.
Please.
When I first read that, I recoiled as well. And as I listened to it again and again, I've listened to it a couple times now, I think he's just chosen some maybe not ideal wording there. because I think the intent, or at least how I'm taking it, is that I'm going to act as if it's my fault, in the sense that it's the situation is true in my life, whether I did something to cause it or did something to not cause it, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, I'm responsible for dealing with the ramifications of whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I think it's just that switch of not saying, okay, this happened to me, as opposed to this happened for me, or I'm going to take responsibility for it, whatever the situation is. And like you said, those terrible kinds of things that happen, obviously those aren't our fault. There are evil people in the world that do evil things, but how we deal with it is our responsibility.
Yeah. Good, John. Anybody else? Yes, Alan.
Yeah, that last line, how we deal with it is our responsibility. There's a very brief page or two where he goes from, you can say it's all your fault, to here's that mathematical formula.
Right.
And the event happens. Whether we caused the event, whether someone else caused the event is the event. It's our response to the event that determines the outcome. And in that regard, it is our actions where we can be responsible for the outcome we achieve, regardless of what circumstances we were put in.
Right. Yeah. And he does then spend some time kind of clarifying what he means by that. And we'll get into that. I was listening, thanks to you guys, to the podcast. I'm blanking on his name now, but
Ed Milet.
Ed Milet, yes. So I was listening to the one where he's talking with Ryan Holiday about Stoicism, which is really interesting. And that's my next book, is going to be either. I didn't realize he wrote the book, The Obstacle is the Way. So either that one or his book on Stoicism about self-discipline. But where was I going on that? He talks about embracing discomfort. That's where I was going. So it's okay to dwell, and I think it's okay for me to dwell in the discomfort of that's a statement that doesn't sit well with me, right? But then we start to process, because if we just never encounter anything that shakes us up, right, then we don't get to go through the process of figuring out, why did that bother me so much? If that makes any sense. So I think he does this intentionally. I think he does it to startle you and to get you thinking and to get you going, oh, wait a minute. So the other part where this ties in so great with Dr. Anderson and the teachings is this takes us right to the drama triangle. And if you've been around Optavia for a while, if you've read the books, then you know the drama triangle. And this graphic is life-changing. It really is. And I think I made some of these shifts when I was a younger man without knowing that I'd made these shifts. But it's not my fault puts us right in the role of victim. And we just get sucked into that drama triangle, where we are, instead of a victim, then we become a creator. And just the difference between these two are huge. So thinking that it's all my fault puts me in that victim chair. Anybody else have any thoughts on drama triangle and how this ties in at the moment? Do you see where I'm going with it? Makes sense, right? Yes, see some nodding heads. So I wrote here that I do think that the part reason that I struggle with this so much was because of his using of the word fault. But saying that they are saying things that are not my fault, just saying that they are my fault doesn't make it my fault. right? I mean, but it is my responsibility. And I think later in the book, he says, so accept that it's your fault or it's responsibility. And then he literally says, whatever you want to call it. And that's where he kind of lets us out, or lets us off the hook. And that's why it makes me think that he used these words intentionally to get us stirred up. But just because something isn't my fault doesn't mean it's not my responsibility. And I think that's kind of the takeaway that we need to come with there. So next up, he talks about the difference between between knowing that we have to do our own push-ups and then actually doing them. That knowing is only half the battle. I learned this when I realized that not only do you have to join a gym, but you actually have to go for it to make any difference. And yeah, that was a big revelation for me. One good decision, he writes, or habit leads to the next good decision or habit. And something that I've learned a lot in my life recently, in just the past 3 years or so, is all I got to do is just the next right thing. If I do the next right thing, it's going to lead to the next right thing and lead to the next right thing. So as we talk about, I've got these goals, how do I get there? How do I chip off these clay? How do I chip off the clay? You do the next right thing. You take responsibility for your actions. You don't sit in the drama triangle, and you just do the next right thing. And that one, as he says, one good decision or habit leads to the next good decision or habit. Before we move into E plus R equals O, anybody else have any insights they want to share on what we've talked about so far? Again, I don't want this to be 40 minutes of me talking. Nobody wants that.
I'll share real quick, because I'm actually having some of these conversations with my mom right now, and I'm realizing I need to have them with myself. But my mom is dealing with a cancer diagnosis and has come through chemotherapy and is now having a whole lot of extreme issues that have brought on about chemotherapy have brought on, including some mental health stuff. And one thing she keeps saying is, it's my fault. It's my fault. Well, that she got cancer obviously is not her fault, but where I'm trying to help her is her attitude about it right now, and what she can do right now is where her responsibility lies. So definitely fault isn't the right word to use there, but responsibility for her current actions. And when she doesn't take the actions she needs to, she gets into depression and her cycle that she's in right now. So yeah, that was my thought. And then now I realize, after we're having this conversation, I need to see where I need to apply that to myself too, and not just tell her what she needs to do, right?
Yeah. It is so easy to get into that drama triangle and be the victim, villain, or hero. I have spent a lot of my years of my life in being one of those three. And as good as we think the hero is, that's not what we need to be. Which is what I'm learning from being a coach, is that I'm not coming in and saving somebody's, life like Superman, but I'm coming alongside them and coaching. All right. Anybody else? Cool. Moving on. So this is what Alan was talking about. E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. And he uses this a lot in the next section of the book. So this is a shift that I made pretty early in my life personally, and I'm sure a lot of you have as well. It's kind of a shift that comes, I think, with either adulthood or at least, maturity in our 20s to 30s, where we realize that life is not about the things that happen to us, but the response we have to the things that happen to us. Is the journey, and we can affect that outcome. It's a lot like stop, challenge, and choose. Right? When we come across an event, we want to stop. Another thing I've learned in my personal development and therapy is that my first thought is almost always wrong. So we just say first thought wrong. So stop, challenge, and choose a better thought. And this is a major shift, I think, that happens to most people as they mature. And I want to see if anybody has a situation in your life that illustrates how you responded to an event and how it changed the outcome. It can be positive, E plus R equals O, or it can be a negative E plus R equals O. But if you have a story like that, I'd love to hear it. I will share mine while you are thinking of one of yours, because I had some heads up that this was coming. So I was passed over for a promotion at work one time. It was a position that I was qualified for, and I thought I had more than 50% shot at it, and I didn't get it. So that was the event. I didn't get the job. So I could respond to it one or several ways. I could get upset, pissed off, and angry, and, complain to somebody, or I could accept it and just been part of the team and respond positively. And that's what I decided to do. So I responded positively. I try to be a team player and continue moving forward. And turns out that I missed out a ton of stress in that job, which would have just been awful. There was just a lot of mess that went with it that I really didn't want. And about a year later, I got bumped up to full time anyway, and was probably making more money now than if I had gotten the job, because they saw that I was committed to being positive and playing the long game and being a good team member, and not just taking my ball and go home when things didn't go my way. So that's a positive E plus R equals O that I can think of. Somebody else have one they'd like to share?
Yeah, I have one. I was working at a car dealership in the local area, working in a sales department. And one day, one of the managers came in and he said, okay, just tell people that cars are available for purchase. So that sounded a little hinky to me. I mean, we were telling people that cars were available in the sense that they could come in, talk numbers on the car. If they like what they hear, they could put a deposit down for when it arrives, they could get the car. So that was the same weekend of Regain. So I felt really off about this. That was the event. So that Monday I went into work and I said, listen, I just want to clarify something. And said, are you telling me to tell people that cars are physically available for purchase on the lot right now? Or are you telling me to do what we've done before? They said, no. Just tell them that they're available for deposit, that kind of situation. Well, worked through that Monday, had my day off Tuesday, came into work on Wednesday, and they took me aside and they basically fired me. Now, my response to that could have been, this ain't right. I know why you're firing me. But I had been praying about it over the weekend, and I was not mad at them. I said, okay, why are you letting me go? They said, well, it just, we're looking to take our department in a new direction. But I wasn't, again, response to it, I wasn't mad. I said, okay, this is part of God's plan. God's got a reason for this. So the outcome is I went and did Instacart for a month. Got in 10,000 steps every day, walking around Costco and Walmart and ShopRite, and and I learned a valuable lesson that one day I'll make it quick here. One day I had to deliver 16 cases of water, and the waters you get at Costco, they're not small cases, but I was able to do that and not get tired. And that was to me a good outcome. I would not have been, if I had not lost 85 pounds, I would have been dead. Well, not dead, but pretty tired, pretty wiped out. But my response to the event could have been anger, but I didn't respond that way. I just saw it as part of God's plan, and I had a good outcome with it. And now I got the job at Trinity Solar, and Trinity Solar is a Christian company. Okay. And the owners are all Christians, and I'm glad I got that job there. But you know, it was a good outcome because my response to the event was proper. So,
Great. Thank you, Alan. Anybody else have something they want to share? A time where you responded? John.
I was just thinking one of my hobbies is repairing antique pocket watches and clocks. And it's really, really easy to get frustrated when an event happens, like a spring goes flying or a clip falls away or something like that, and you lose it. And I've had a few different situations where I've responded positively and thought, okay, this happens, and I move on, the problem gets fixed. I've had other times where I've responded very negatively and I've made the problem much worse. So just a quick story there.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Anybody else? This is good. Good. All right. I don't see any more hands. So I'll read a little bit about what he talks about here. Hang on. So in his book, on page 40, he gives an example of his E plus R equals O. The E, I'm fat. R, I get emotional, blame, point fingers, complain that it's my wife's fault. O, I'm still fat and I'm still mad and we don't speak again for weeks. So that doesn't work. But if he takes responsibility for it himself, E, I'm fat. R, I take responsibility, look at it as an opportunity for growth, change my eating habits, and do my push-ups. Outcome, I feel empowered, I look and feel great, and I build self-confidence. So that's an example that he put in there. The other thing that I want to point out, and this is me, because when he's talking about that, he talks about a guy who came to him and needed to borrow some money. He couldn't pay his rent. And so he's asking Jamil to borrow money. And Jamil runs down a list of things that says, well, his outcome was to feel sorry for himself and to ask for money. He could have done this. He could have done all of these things. And I don't know that he didn't do those things. Maybe he did all those things. And the point that I'm coming to with that is one of my favorite lines from Star Trek is that it is still possible to commit no mistakes, or it is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. We can do everything right sometimes. And sometimes it doesn't work out because life is not fair. Life is what it is. In my experience, I have seemingly done everything that I could do and done all the right things, and it just doesn't work out because we cannot do other people's push-ups. So when we're encountering somebody, when we talk about doing our own push-ups, so when we encounter people who are making life difficult, or we see a time where they can really change. He gives the example of his wife wouldn't make the bed. When they first moved in together, his wife didn't make the bed in the morning, and it just drove him insane. And then he shares a quote from Jim Rohn. Now, when I first heard him, because I'm listening to the book, I thought he said Jim Rome, who is a sports guy, talk show, a radio host, a TV host, and I was like, has Jim Rome gone into life coaching? Because he's probably not the guy I would want to get life advice from, but it's Jim Rohn. With this quote, some people don't do well because they major in minor issues. And, that's another shift that we've all probably experienced. Don't sweat the small stuff. I don't agree with the second part where it says it's all small stuff. Not everything is small stuff, but don't sweat the small stuff. I myself have a 5-year perspective where when I encounter something, when I get an E, I say, in 5 years, is this going to be a deal? Is this going to be a problem in 5 years? I'm still talking about it. And if not, then I probably just need to let it go. And that has saved me a lot of stress. Does anybody have any examples when you wanted to do someone's push-ups for them, but you couldn't? I know as coaches, we probably see this a lot where we have clients who they set a big goal, but they don't want to do the work that is required. They don't want to follow the plan. They don't or they don't want to sign up for the plan. I was really bold with somebody in a Facebook group, and I reached out to him because he made a comment that he wanted to fit into smaller shirts. And I'm like, I have a solution for that. And we were talking and everything was going, we were vibing, and all of a sudden I was blocked on Facebook. And I was like, dude, he filled out a health assessment, everything. And I'm like, I don't know what I did. So I just sent him a message and an email. And I said, look, I'm sorry if I pushed too hard, but just trying to help. If you know where, if you ever need me, you know where to find me. And fact of the matter is he just wasn't ready to do the work, and I can't do the push-ups for him. Anybody else have any kind of example like that, even if it's similar with a client or friend?
I mean, every time I think of an example of this, I think of being a dad. I mean, like, and you know, the easiest thing in the world is to just kind of do it for them. You know, is to, you know, clean the room or do this, or, you know, I had a conversation with mine the other day, but I know at the end of the day, it's going to make things easy for the next 15 minutes, but it's not going to make things easier for the next couple months or the next year when they have to learn this lesson, you know. And it's weighing, you know, so much of our life, so much of my life, I feel like at the moment has been like, all right, are you investing in the now or are you investing in the future? Like, and, you know, sometimes that decision is easier than it looks, you know, but sometimes it's really hard. But that's what I think of when I see like examples of this.
Yeah. Thanks, Billy. That's good. Yeah. I think as a whole, we did a pretty good job with raising my son, but if there's one thing I would point out to say that we did not do enough was to let him fail and to let him struggle. We were too quick to help, too quick to solve the problems, too quick to get him around the obstacle and not make him go through it. And I think it took him a while. I think he's there now, but yeah, I think that's one where we tried to do his push-ups for him, and that doesn't work. Anybody else before we move on?
I've got in the real estate business, we run into a lot of situations where people will pick a fight over something that is relatively small. The classic example is that there's a used washer or dryer in the house. It might be worth like $250, but they're going to hold up the sale of hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of property because that used appliance is the thing they want to argue about. It's not about that used appliance. And when the other party says, no, we're not going to buy your house if we don't get the used washer or dryer, all of a sudden grandma's washer and dryer said, please take it. And it no longer matters. It's the dance that we all do. Those of us who do coaching, we're constantly doing the dance of helping people to understand what's most important to them so that they can do the work for themselves. It's an interesting journey of discovery for us and for them together. And where it's a partnership, it's a wonderful thing. Where you're butting heads with somebody who's not ready to come along, it's a whole other animal.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Alan. All right. So in conclusion, then I'm going to read a little bit from the last page of this section. He says, taking radical responsibility does not negate the magnitude of your obstacles or hardships. It empowers you to choose the right decisions and create a formidable life in the midst of them. So again, like we've been talking, the obstacle is the way. Do your own push-ups. They're not comfortable and they're not fun, but they are the catalyst for the change you are looking for. The change you're seeking in your life or business is yours and yours alone to create. The whole thing is on you, and it's your responsibility to put in the work, claim your reaction, and learn to say, it's my fault. Even when it's not your fault, treat it like it is. Seizing fault or responsibility or blame or whatever you want to call it will reward you with the opportunity to find the next gift and brilliant thing that you have inside, the gold beneath the clay. It is about becoming the surgical master of your mind. I like that phrase. There you go. That's what was supposed to be up when I was doing that. Trying to do 3 things at once. All right. Any further questions, insights, or things to share on shift 2? This is a big one.
It's hard to do.
It's a very convicting chapter. It at a number of levels, I am responsible for the things that I say I'm responsible for, and my Pennsylvania German ancestors have got that drilled into us for generations. You say you're going to do it, it gets done, period, end of sentence. So my sense of responsibility can fall into that drama triangle superhero thing real fast. But in terms of what are you really going to build, and are you going to do the things that you need to do it? 300 crunches is several years worth of crunches for me, I think. So, Jamil had a goal, and if you don't have that goal and you don't know where it's going, well, that's that Mad Hatter bit. Any road will get you there. It's just going to take longer.
Yeah. Yeah, I taught my son the same thing, but just using different words, which is from an actor's standpoint. When we encounter a scene and we try to find out what the character motivation is in the scene, we ask 2 questions. What does the character want, and how are they going to get it? And so through his whole life, I was like, okay, what do you want? Okay, you want to be that? How are you going to get there? Make a plan. Do the work. Awesome. All right, let's move on to support. Pat, I got a recipe. Hopefully it's the same one for a Philly steak cheese skillet, perfect for our Philadelphia contingency.
It's the Philly cheesesteak skillet. So it makes 5 servings. I really enjoy it. It's probably about the favorite thing that we've made from this Optavia plan or whatever. So it doesn't really include that much. How much do you want me to go into this? Like, I'm not really sure exactly how much you want me to get into it.
Yeah, I mean, well, the recipe is pretty clear, and everybody can read that, and I'll tell you in a second where these will be posted. But okay. Any tips or things you like to add into it, special flavorings, or you pretty much keep it like it is?
I kept it like it is, and to be honest, I thought it was really good. The only thing that I found that we didn't really need to do with when we make this up is where is it? Where was it? Oh my gosh. Oh, the simmer for 5 minutes. We found that we didn't really need to do that for some reason on this. If you can see it on there, wherever it is. But that's the only thing that we really changed up on this. But other than that, I thought it was pretty good as is. So yeah.
So there's a reduced. This calls for a reduced sugar ketchup. If you're not familiar with G. Hughes, his line of barbecue sauces, ketchups, condiments. Usually find them at Walmart, but those are the best I found. Has anybody found any kind of reduced sugar ketchup? That's actually a no sugar ketchup that you like, that is better than G. Hughes?
I haven't tried the G. Hughes, but we usually use, I think it's just Heinz, no sugar.
Right.
And it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But I need to try the G. Hughes for the barbecue sauce.
Yeah, it's he's got a spicy, smoky, sweet and spicy barbecue sauce. The mango habanero stuff, we do chicken or shrimp in that, and he's got all kinds of sauces. So highly recommend the G. Hughes stuff. So last night we started a guide for IronMen on the change wall. Does everybody know where to find the guides? So if you go, try to pull it up here. Just in case you don't know. So on the Change for a Better Wall page, the top left there's those 3 lines. And if you click on the 3 lines, it will then bring up guides. and then you hit guides, and this is newbie information, encouragement, recipes. There's a whole recipe section there. This is low tech right here. But then when we get down to the bottom, guide number 10 is IronMen. And so the links to this Zoom, link to the recordings, and all the recipes will be in this guide. So if you have a friend or a client that you want to get them up to speed, tell them to check out guide number 10 for IronMen, and that'll have all the information. They can watch the past episodes and get up to speed with us and join us for week 3. All right. Anybody have anything else they want to share before we stop recording? We good. All right. Well, I did not make a slide for next week. So next week is Finding Your Land of Plenty, shift number 3. That'll be November 17th. So for those of you that are watching this, we hope that you can join us in person on the 17th. If not, keep watching these rewatches and let us know what you think. Thanks for joining us, and we're going to stop recording now. I didn't stop recording.